All right, here we go. Let's get ready to start another episode of WVOE. Let me kind of call in to the station. Good morning, good afternoon, I guess. It's Dr. Brown. It's Dr. Brown. How you doing? All right, good. Looks like we're ready for another episode. Okay. All right, no problem, no problem. All right. All right. Thank you for that introduction there. All right. Good afternoon, listeners. You're locked into WVOE, the voice of Ebony, where your health is our heartbeat. I'm your host, Dr. Christopher Brown, president and founder of Pressure MD Academy, and welcoming you to another enriching session of Health Facts, the show where wisdom meets wellness and knowledge is always in season. So last time we talked a little bit about, gave you a little hint into how we physicians learn, and talked about a case report. Had a brother that kind of really turned his life around and got his numbers to come back, a lot better than they were before. This time, what we're going to do today is we're actually going to talk about minority mental health. And the reason why we're choosing this is because July is actually National Minority Mental Health Month. Okay, it's a time dedicated to raising awareness and fostering conversations around the unique mental health challenges faced by racial and ethnic minorities in the United States, as us, of course. Okay, so the observance has its roots in the dedicated advocacy of the late author and journalist B.B. Moore Campbell. And she, along with her friend Linda Wharton Boyd, worked tirelessly to shed light on the mental health needs of the Black community and other underserved populations. Their efforts led to the U.S. House of Representatives officially recognizing July as B.B. Moore Campbell National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month in 2008. So the importance of this month cannot be overstated. It's a time to confront the disparities in access to care, to challenge the stigma that so often prevents individuals from seeking help, and to celebrate the strength and resilience of our community while providing tangible resources for support. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the state of minority mental health. We're going to look at a few numbers here, and with this show, of course, we kind of do things over and over again, and some of this is because that redundancy, bringing this up in different angles, kind of helps us to understand the importance of issues and engage it in different ways. Okay, so to truly understand the landscape of minority mental health, we want to look at a few data, some statistics of this nature, particularly within the African American community. Okay, so if you kind of go to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Office of Minority Health, Black Americans are 20% more likely to experience serious mental health problems such as major depressive disorder or generalized anxiety disorder compared to the general population. However, that while 1 in 5 American adults experience mental illnesses, Black Americans are less likely to receive treatment than their white counterparts. In 2021, of the 21% of Black and African Americans who had a mental health condition, only 39% of that 21% received mental health services. There are a lot of factors. Socioeconomics can play a factor. African Americans can have less access to resources, um, and that could be a major issue. And a lot of times, those socioeconomic factors kind of do more than one thing. So, it's the stress of living with fewer resources. In addition to that, they may be, even if you have the resources, it can be difficult to access. You may not have the access that you need. And so all these things kind of play a role. And then just, of course, having less access, having fewer resources are in and of themselves a stressor. And then the other thing is that, the suicide rate among Black youth has been increasing at an alarming rate and has been increasing faster than any other racial or ethnic group. And I always like to remind people, like, a lot of times, whether it's this show or a lot of other shows with clinicians or kind of quote unquote experts, we throw out statistics. We love, I mean, that's just what we do. Okay, that those numbers are there, but we always have to remember that those numbers are not just statistics. They represent our friends, they represent our family, they represent our neighbors. So there are always lies behind those statistics, and we just like for people to know that. So and remember that that is the important part. Okay. So if we look at, these mental health issues, the top five that affect minorities, affect African Americans, are kind of the following. So we got major depression disorder. So that's a big one that's out there. And depression is more than just feeling sad. It's kind of this persistent feeling of sadness, loss of interest in outside activities. Um, and they can lead to a number of, yeah, it's kind of like you first affect the mind, then you affect the body. So major depressive disorders is a big one. Anxiety disorders. So that's a group of mental illnesses that cause constant and overwhelming anxiety and fear. These people are just kind of skittish about everything. And they can also manifest themselves different ways because a lot of times, you get that anxiety, that's that fight or flight. So that can also cause a lot of other physical manifestations within people. Then there's something called post-traumatic stress disorder. And this condition can develop after a person has experienced or witnessed a traumatic event. So think about, the number of people that have been, having, really been in a number of different situations, whether it's kind of gun violence, physical violence, maybe there's some stuff going on at home. All these things can result in post-traumatic stress disorder. And then you got the things that that people experience, like racism, historical trauma. All this can contribute to PTSD and minority populations. There's substance use disorders, and this occurs when alcohol or drugs cause clinically significant impairment, and that can be, like whether it's alcohol, whether it's drugs, all of these things can result in substance use disorders, and and causes it, what allows it to be called a disorder is when it really starts interfering in a person's life. When you're not able to meet major responsibilities at work, school, or home. Like say, missing work, going to work late at school. Not getting work done on time, or if it's home. Like I said, either pulling back from home responsibilities or possibly even, becoming, you know, agitated at loved ones that might be inside the home or even violent. And then, there's stuff like schizophrenia can also be pretty disruptive um, as well. And schizophrenia is kind of is a pretty serious mental disorder, and where people kind of really um, they interpret reality abnormally. So these are when you start thinking of people that think the TV's talking to them and stuff of that nature. These are people that have schizophrenia. And it's also important to note that Black individuals can be more likely to be misdiagnosed with schizophrenia. Okay. So these are some of the top issues. So what do we want? So we want to know how to screen for these sort of disorders, how to get diagnosis, and who's the right professional who needs to help you with these sort of things. Now, kind of recognize some signs in the first step, but really, you want to make sure you're getting a proper screening and proper diagnosis. I kind of harp on this issue a lot, and that is the role of primary care physicians. Okay. And probably every session that we have, I'm probably going to tell you, the importance of primary care physicians. Why? Because primary care physicians are your first step into this medical world. Okay. They can really just help you to understand, like, medicine is complicated, folks. Medicine is freaking complicated. Yeah, like I'm a kidney doctor. We got our standard book. And I ain't gonna say all the books, but just our standard book is probably about this thick. Okay, so and each specialty has books like that. Some of them have two or three. So each one of these specialties it has their own issues, and then you got a primary care doc that has been introduced. Part of our training to be introduced to a lot of these things, and they can help you to find out what's going on with you and figure out who to go to next. After starting the treatment. So, like I said, they may start treatment on you and then still get you off to a specialist. So I'm going to re-harp on the importance of primary care physicians. So when it comes to mental health disorders, your primary care physician is really your first step. Whether it's, I'm feeling a little more sad than usual because like I said, if you have a primary care doc and you've been following with them for a while, they can tell the difference between, okay, maybe, oh, you're sad. Okay. Oh, well, your mom, your parent just passed. They can tell the difference between a sadness that's just maybe transitory because something happened to your life, versus something that's, something that's a different condition that may be a true change in your nature. Okay. So and that's one of the reasons why you want a primary care physician early, clinician early, and you want to make sure that you stay with them a while because that way they can help discern, what's new with you versus what's, what may be something that's transient. Because there are things like, what we call reactive disorder with depressed mood, which is basically, you know, if you get stressed, you will exhibit depression like symptoms. And that just means that your reaction to stress is depression. And so some people get anxiety, some people get other things as well now in that nature. But like I said, your primary care physician may be able to help you out with that. Okay. They also have screening tools. Okay. That's the screening tools they have. So the screening tools where they can have you fill out these questionnaires, and these questionnaires are designed to kind of help sort you into one mental health condition versus another. And so if you're following up with your primary care physicians, they can screen for depression, they can screen for anxiety and things of this nature. So that's why you want to do that. Okay, so when should you see a PCP versus a psychiatrist? Well, first of all, like I said, you should already have a PCP. So that's always a great starting point. It's a good place to start with. The other thing is that they can screen for these mental health conditions, and then they can refer you to a specialist, because there are some specialists that if you don't have a primary care physician, they're not going to see you. So they only take the referrals from another doctor or another clinician. So that's one of the reasons you want to have one. And then, like I said, even if they are not, like I said, self-diagnosis is a very tough thing to do. So your primary care physician is going to be a good starting point. They're going to assess you, see what sort of psychological condition you have, and prescribe medication if it's appropriate, to get you started. So maybe you get started on that medication even before you get to the specialist. Okay. Then a psychiatrist is a doctor who specializes in mental health and should be sought for more complex conditions. So like stuff like the schizophrenia is probably going to be managed by a psychiatrist. So if your symptoms are severe, you have multiple mental health conditions, definitely if you have thoughts of self-harm. As a matter of fact, if you have thoughts of self-harm, you really need to call a clinician immediately or call one of the helplines immediately. Okay. And also, of course, if you have a primary care physician, things haven't been, you've been treated, things aren't getting better. That's another reason to go see the psychiatrist. Okay. Okay, so that's kind of a quick and dirty coverage of kind of mental health disorders, kind of highlighting this stuff for Minority Mental Health Month. And what I wanted to cover next is something, the power of self-esteem. Okay, because I'm really kind of finding that a lot of the conditions that we experience, you know, sometimes feeling good about yourself can either help mitigate those, or if nothing else, help you to get through some of these things. Also, kind of like a lot of other conditions, like I said, feeling good about yourself can actually, lead to, stuff being released that can kind of help you stay in a better mindset. So self-esteem can play a crucial role in your mental well-being. Low self-esteem is often linked to conditions such as depression and anxiety. Kind of building a healthy sense of self-worth can be a powerful tool for prevention and management. the not just these conditions, actually for a lot of other conditions as well. Whether it's these mental health conditions, actually physical conditions as well. You feel better about yourself. You're more likely to exercise. You're more likely to eat right. You'd like to more likely to be kind of self conscious about things that are changing in your body. So what are some things you can do to kind of help yourself with self esteem? Okay. And, practice positive self-talk. Challenge negative thoughts that you have, replace them with positive affirmations. And instead of, I can't do this, try saying something like, I'm capable and will do my best. Okay. Um, I remember actually, I got a friend of mine, he's a psychiatrist. And I remember him, because one thing that goes on with physicians a lot of times, they get stressed and they feel stuck at their job. So say they're employed by, a place and they feel stuck at their job. Um, and one of the things he taught us to do, he kind of made a comment about this, and that is, recognizing that feeling of stuck, being stuck at a job that you don't like is just that. It's a feeling. It's not reality. Technically speaking, you can walk off that job and, yes, you won't have no more money, but like I said, technically speaking, you can walk off that job and it's not like unplugging a TV from a power source. I mean, it's not like that TV is no longer no good. You walk away from a job, you're still alive, you're still functional in the whole 9 yards. Now, granted, your money's gonna get low and there's gonna be those sort of challenges, but when you have like a lot of mental health issues that are being caused by something like a job, like I said, that your feeling of stuck is a feeling. And once you recognize this and how you can change your feeling, okay. So if it's so say that, yet again, going back to this positive self-talk, if you need to lose weight, instead of saying I can't lose 20 pounds, I've tried before. I'm gonna, no, 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 no. I am capable of losing these 20 pounds, and I'm gonna do my best to lose these 20 pounds. I'm gonna, go for that walk a day. I'm gonna drink water instead of soda. I'm gonna do this. And kind of reframe your mindset, okay? Another thing you can do is, you want to identify and celebrate your strengths. Sit down and make a list of positive qualities and accomplishments that you have done. Okay. Acknowledge the things that you do well, no matter how small they may sing. Okay. You want to make sure you do that. You want to make sure that you acknowledge the things that you do. And I mean, sit down and write them down. Write them down. Get you a piece of paper. Write down only positive, write down all the positive. 'Cause like, a lot of people are good at, finding their flaws. And the world is usually good at finding your flaws and finding the things that may be wrong. That's the easy thing. But if you sit down and you write that positive thing, like, "Yeah, I'm a good person. I can, run well, or I'm good at art, or whatever, I'm good at washing. Good at washing dishes. That's the positive things. But man, find your positive things, find positive qualities about you. I got a great smile. Find those positive qualities, write them down. And when you start noticing yourself kind of feeling down, go back to them and read them. Okay, go back to them, read them. Matter of fact, read them out loud. Don't even just read it. Read it out loud to yourself. Okay, and you may want to record yourself reading it to yourself and then play it back to yourself. If you want that positive stuff in there. You want to build up your self-esteem, okay? All right. The other thing you could do with self-esteem is you want to set realistic and achievable goals, okay? So if you get, yeah, again, let's go back there. I love the weight loss thing, okay? That's one that everybody, yeah, most people struggle with is losing weight. Set realistic and achievable goals, okay? You're not going to lose those 20 pounds a week, okay? If you do that, you're gonna disappoint yourself and it's not going to reach. Say you're going to lose a pound a pound a week or a pound every 2 weeks. Okay. And that's how you're going to do this. And then when you lose that pound, cheer for yourself. Say, oh my God, I lost that pound. There you go. I'm great. Let it boost your confidence. It doesn't, I mean, like I said, if you're trying to accomplish a goal, especially when it comes to things that are related to your health, eh, y- making a first step in the right direction is very helpful. Okay, it's always helpful. You're going a little bit closer to your goal. You're gonna make that goal. Celebrate that step. Okay, celebrate that. Take the time to celebrate that step. And then that make that step turn into a second step. Even like I said, we're on a Christian station, of course. So what I mean, so remember, we serve a God, and the God has a heaven. And how do you get there? You got to leap of faith. And what is the most important step in that faith route? It's that first step. Okay, you take a step toward God, God gonna take two steps toward you. Okay, remember that. So remember that. So that's not just in your spiritual life, that's also in your physical life as well. Okay. So that's one thing to remember. Okay. All right. So let's do the other thing is engage in activities you enjoy and excel at. Okay. And that's kind of going back to these things that, find things that you're good at. Find a hobby that you like. Find some activity that you can feel good and can reinforce your self-worth. You know, if it's, playing chess, checkers, whatever. Or it may be, you might like carving things, or you might like drawing or something of that nature. Find some hobbies that you like and that you excel at, and use those to kind of fill in some of your extra time. Don't watch the reality TV show. That's not good. That's probably not good for your mental health anyway. But find some hobbies and activities that you're good at, and let those reinforce your self worth. Okay. The other thing you want to do is surround yourself with a supportive community. Make sure you're keeping in contact with people who can uplift you. People that smile, say, "Hey, how's it going? Good morning." And also be that positive thing. Like I said, acknowledge people when you see them. Hey, great tie. Hey, wonderful dress. I guess for guys, you gotta be a little careful about it, but for the most part, like I said, try to be positive and positive, be supportive, and try to beam that positively out so other people can beam it back towards you. Okay, so you want to definitely make sure you're doing those sort of things. And I think taking care of your body is also important for self-esteem. I think that so a lot of times that, yeah, they say that even stuff like obesity and some of the nature is related to poor self-esteem. So if you kind of reverse it, kind of start losing that weight and tightening up. Like I said, that can also kind of help you with feeling better about yourself. And another thing, and this is I think, especially important for African Americans, celebrate your culture, celebrate your heritage. Okay. For African Americans, I think a lot of times we get a lot of negative input there. But no, no, like I said, if you're from, the city or whatever, be proud of, what's going on there. If you're from the country, some chicken foot holler. Yeah, look, hey, that's where you're from. That's where your parents made you and raised you and stuff of nature. Feel good about that. Don't let other people kind of talk it down. Whether it's a poor area of town, or whether it's a dirt road that you had to walk down. Like I said, make sure that you feel good about that, because that is your past. That's what led to you being here. And it's as nice, and it has done the same job that somebody in $1 million house did. Okay. It allowed you to be here, and it raised you. So don't let yourself feel embarrassed about something of that nature. Okay. And then last but not least, I'm a lifestyle medicine doctor. So I was going to talk about lifestyle. So lifestyle medicine for mental health, wellness, and key takeaways. So, lifestyle choices have a profound impact on our mental health. A lifestyle medicine approach can focus on a few pillars to kind of help minimize the risk of mental health concerns. So let's think about some things that we can do from a lifestyle medicine perspective that can kind of help. You want to nourish your body and your mind. Eat diet rich in fruits, vegetables, whole grain. Get some good, like I said, go to the farmer's market. Go to the farmer's market, get you some fresh fruits and vegetables that are there. If you're eating protein, try to eat the lean proteins that are there, and see if that can kind of see if that, because that those sort of things can actually kind of help boost they can help with mood regulation, and can also help support brain health. Okay. Number two, you want to move regularly. Okay, I'm always going to tell you to move regularly because physical activity is important. Also, physical activity is actually a powerful antidepressant and anti-anxiety tool. Of course, I'm going to tell you to try to get that 150 minutes of moderate exercise in a week. But I'm telling you right now, walk. Okay, so if you are feeling down about things, find you somewhere where you can walk and just just get outside, or even if it's at the mall, if it's bad weather or something of nature, find you someplace you can walk and just clear your mind. Okay, and just let the worries of the day kind of fall, kind of fall off your shoulders. So you want to make sure you're moving regularly. And also for those with anxiety, actually, I just talked to a young man this weekend, and he has attention deficit. And what he does is, to minimize his medication, he said, yeah, I do push-ups. He's like, anytime I feel like my mind's kind of racing or whatever, I do push-ups. And dude has some nice guns there. But that's what he does. He does physical activity in order to kind of mitigate the racing and stuff of the nature that goes on with him. Okay, you want to prioritize restful sleep. Okay, so you want to aim for around that 7, 8 hours of good quality sleep a night. Make sure you do good sleep hygiene. Cut off. Um, you know, uh, you know, cut off alarms, trying to minimize the amount of light, especially that blue light from all these devices and stuff we have. Try to cover those because they do interrupt your sleep. Try to make it as quiet as possible. Like some people like it a little cooler and things of that nature, but prioritize restful sleep. Make sure you get that good sleep. Okay. Practice stress management. Find some good activities that can reduce your stress. Mindfulness, meditation, deep breathing exercises. You know, you find yourself in some situation, just in through your nose, out through your mouth. Okay, you want to make sure you're doing those things, and that can, those deep breaths can kind of help trigger your parasympathetics in your body, and that to kind of calm you down. Okay, and then of course, like you get again as Christians, we got prayer. Okay, we got prayer, so we can actually take our stuff to God. We have a God that came to the earth and died for our sins, who literally says, "Hey, take your burdens and put them on me. Our God wants to take our burdens." So and to practice that connection. So as a Christian, stress is not something you should have because you got a God that said, "Give it to me." Okay, so make sure you practice stress management. Then you want to cultivate positive social connections. Make sure you got good social bonds, sense of community, and positive factors for mental health. Okay. Um, and last but not least, I just want to leave you with a couple of resources that you can go to, and if you need more help for yourself, if you just want to learn more about some of these mental health issues, or if you know someone that might need it. Okay, there's a National Alliance on Mental Health, what we call NAMI, NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Health, and they provide advocacy, education support, public awareness of individuals and families affected by mental illness can build better lives. So you can just look them up online. Okay, there is something called the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, and that's the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. And it's a national helpline. It's free, confidential, and you can always give them a call. There's Mental Health America, MHA. It offers a wealth of online resources, screening tools, information for people to understand and improve their mental health. So you can always go there as well. So that's pretty much it for the show. I would have to give my disclaimer that I'm your doctor. So if you have issues that are related to you specifically, always check with your primary care physician that you should already have, your primary care clinician. So physician, nurse practitioner, PA, make sure you take that stuff to them. And if you don't have one, you should be getting one. I keep telling you, make sure you get one. So you should get that as well. But like I said, thank you all for tuning in to the WVOE live stream with Pressure MD Academy. WVOE, the voice of Ebony, down in Chadburn, North Carolina. So for this Minority Mental Health Month, let's commit to breaking the silence, supporting one another, and prioritizing our well-being. Thank you for tuning in, and I will chat with you again next week.